As of this recording, it is 9 a.m. where I am, so about 12 hours away from the start of Game 3. Yes, my phone is on 1%, don't judge me. We're going to preview Game 3 right now, and then in the second section, I will break down everything I saw in Game 3. I kind of like this format where you guys get to see what my predictions were, even though you got to just watch the game. And with the final side at 1-1, tonight is a huge game. I'm really excited for this one. Really quickly though, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Keeps. Now, I'd be willing to bet that either you or someone you know has experienced some kind of male pattern baldness, which would make sense because 2 out of every 3 guys experience it by the time they're 35. And if you are that person or you know those people, then this product is for you. Keeps offers a subscription-based service to combat the symptoms of male pattern baldness. These are affordable, clinically proven treatments that are delivered straight to your door. So you don't actually have to go to the doctor and have those kinds of conversations in person. They make it way easier on you. And that's really the differentiator for Keeps, is they want to make sure that you're comfortable. And it really doesn't get much easier than quality, doctor-recommended products that are delivered straight to your door at about half the cost of what they'd be at the pharmacy. And even better than that, if you have questions or concerns, which I'm sure you will, they have you covered there as well. They have a system set up with 24/7 care and support to try and help you reach your goals with these products. So if you need to talk with them about anything at any time, every plan comes with a full year of messaging with their network of advisors. And if this is something you're interested in, you can get 50% off of your first order at keeps.com/sporting, or you click the link in the description. Once again, that is keeps.com, KEEPS/sporting, or click the link in the description. And thank you again to Keeps for sponsoring this video. Okay, Game 3 is tonight. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I think Boston's winning tonight. They haven't lost 2 games in a row the entirety of the postseason. That's a really impressive feat. They're a team that really adjusts well after losses. They have flat performances at times, but they seem to always make up for it, especially as they're going home. I think Boston's going to win this game. I do think it's going to be close though. Some things that I'm paying attention to, first and foremost, is how Boston decides to guard Steph. They really haven't guarded him well from a team standpoint in these first 2 games. Like, Derek White has done a good job of staying with him, but from a team structure standpoint, they haven't done a very good job. And Golden State went to a much simpler offensive philosophy later on in Game 2, where they just ran a lot of pick and rolls. They really were very Steph-centric rather than running a lot of their off-ball stuff, and Boston struggled to guard that. So I'm looking for some adjustments for Boston there in terms of either just switching every Steph pick and roll and just hoping that one of their bigs can stay in front of him, or what I think is probably more likely to start, especially at home, trying to make him uncomfortable, blitz those pick and rolls and make Draymond and the other couple of guys beat you rather than losing to Steph. And that is going to be a really interesting dynamic for Golden State, because they haven't really had a ton of really good offensive performances from people other than Steph Curry in the first 2 games of this series. I know Jordan Poole made 5 threes in Game 2. Jordan Poole's not been good in this series. He's played about 4 or 5 good minutes, and it's mostly been when Golden State has a significant lead. Like, he was not good for a game and a half, had a nice third quarter the other night, and that's been pretty much it. And so if you're Boston, I think they're going to blitz Steph in the pick and roll. They're going to make it a 4-on-3 with Draymond or Gary Payton, whoever's setting the screen, and they're going to make Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole prove that they're good enough offensive threats that they are not going to be able to do that to Steph. And so if they can make shots, if they can play well, then Boston's going to have to continue to make adjustments, and then maybe they'll just go to switching all the time, or whatever the case may be. But to this point in the series, like Wiggins, Klay, and again, Jordan Poole, with the exception of a couple of shots in Game 2, those guys have not proven to be significant enough offensive threats for that strategy to not be viable for Boston. Offensively for Boston, I'm not really worried. They have more of margin for error in terms of their offensive output, just because they're bigger and they're stronger, and like they could just work on the offensive glass. And I feel like their offense is more sustainable because of the bigger wings that they have, and Jalen and Jason's ability to create their shots individually. And in comparison to a team like Golden State that either needs Steph to go off or they need a lot of movement to score, I'm not really worried about Boston's offensive ability. I think Tatum's going to have another pretty solid game like he did in Game 2 from a scoring standpoint. And really, my concern for Boston is if the Warriors, I think the Warriors are going to win one of these 2 games in Boston. By the way, I just don't think it's going to be tonight. Just if the Warriors have a really good shooting performance, obviously that's going to be an issue for them. Like if they get a Klay game tonight, like Klay makes 6 or 7 threes, or Wiggins hits a couple of threes, like that's going to really be the issue for them, because the Golden State doesn't actually have a ton of spacing. You're still going to guard Klay Thompson like he's Klay Thompson, despite the fact that he struggled in this series. But it's like Klay, an occasional Wiggins off ball 3, an occasional Jordan Poole 3, either on or off the ball, and then obviously Steph. But if you're eliminating Steph, from the offensive possession, and a Golden State team that has been hesitant to play all 3 of Steph, Poole, and Klay at the same time, time for obvious defensive reasons. If your other two spacers on the floor are Clay, who's been struggling, and Wiggins or Poole, I'm not super worried about that if I'm Boston to this point in the series until they prove me otherwise. I'm still worried about Clay. I'm still worried about the potential for him to go off in one of these games. But right now, I think that makes sense as a way to try and guard Steph. The only other thing off of that, if you're Boston, is if you blitz Steph in the pick and roll, not the way you want to guard, that can open up a lot of offensive rebound possibilities for you because you have 4 people in front of the ball for Golden State and obviously only 3 defenders for Boston. And so not just giving up offensive rebounds, guys like Kevon Looney crashing the glass, but also then getting kickouts to Steph and Clay and their shooters and stuff like that. And that can obviously be a big issue. But again, I think that the size of Boston and their consistency offensively, and in addition to some adjustments they're going to make in terms of guarding Steph and their ability to come back well after losses, I do think they're going to win tonight. I'm going to go 112-101 for tonight's score. And yeah, we'll see you in the next part. It is now 11:30 p.m. Game 3 just finished up here on the East Coast. And something I realized while I was watching this game, we've seen this series before for Boston. This is, obviously there's differences, but from a overview level, this is basically the Nets series in the first round. Hear me out. Boston has multiple different options they can go to offensively. They have multiple lineups that work. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're more athletic. Van Gundy mentioned it a ton during the broadcast. And Golden State's ability to win these games is very similar to what Brooklyn needed to have happen in that first round. Now, they played better than Brooklyn did, and that's why they've won a game and been close in some of these. But they have to shoot the basketball well, and Boston has to turn the ball over. The margin for error for Boston is just so much bigger than what Golden State has to offer, even in a game tonight where we saw Steph play really well despite foul trouble. Clay hit a ton of shots. Even when their guys are making shots, they still can struggle to win these games. And for Boston, that's just not the case. Like, they have so many different ways they can win. They're better on the offensive glass. They're better defensively. They have bigger wings. They don't have to shoot the ball well to win. They can win without shooting it well. That's not the case for Golden State. And more so than any game in this series so far, this game confirmed the feelings that I have about Boston just being the better team in this series. And maybe even more concerning than that, if you're a Warriors fan or you're the Warriors here, is that I can't think of a lineup that Golden State can put on the floor that's going to make a lot of sense for them. I can't think of a group they can put out there that's going to give them enough scoring, enough spacing, enough defense, and be able to rebound the ball. That was one of the biggest issues for them tonight, is finishing possessions with a defensive rebound. Whenever Boston got a shot and didn't turn the ball over, they were just so much better than Golden State. And Draymond is having issues with the size of Boston. He's having issues with Robert Williams. He's having issues with Al Horford on the glass. They can't play that small unit with Draymond at the 5. They don't really have the wings to put out there anyway, where like Otto Porter is out there a lot. If he's not making shots, it's tough to have him out there on the floor. Clay was good tonight, but even if you want to go like Steph, Clay, Wiggins, I don't know who the front court is in that scenario. Again, you can go Porter, you can try and do Poole and Wiggins and just go all offense and have either Looney or Draymond. I'm not sure that they have the front court options to be able to guard, have some kind of presence at the rim, and secure the rebound defensively. Boston just has better options there in the front court. One thing that I do think is interesting, though, to potentially pay attention to the rest of the way in the series, again, Van Gundy mentioned it on the broadcast, I think Kuminga could be an interesting wrinkle here. Maybe not for game 4, but if you playing him at home potentially, if you need a little bit more athleticism, a little bit more juice, a little bit more length, especially on the wings, maybe he's the answer. Obviously, spacing is going to be an issue for him. He's someone that Boston is not going to respect from behind the three-point line. And again, that speaks to kind of the issue that Golden State is having here, where they don't have a two-way lineup. Boston has like 2, maybe even 3 lineups they can put out there, any combination of 5 guys that are going to be really good at both ends of the floor and are going to be able to rebound the ball. I mean, it's some combination of either White, Smart, Brown, Tatum, and then, shuffle the bigs in and out, whether it be Horford, Williams, either Williams, swapping out one of the guards, swapping out one of the wings. They've played one big more specifically in the middle stretches of these games rather than, to begin and end the games. Obviously, they're playing Williams and Horford together. They just have more options there. White was good again tonight. And again, like you can see them survive even without Jason Tatum like taking over these games, because the margin for error is just bigger for them. And Steph, can be incredible like he was tonight, and Golden State can still lose. If Boston gets like a great Jason Tatum game one night, they're going to win that game. And again, I think that illustrates the difference in the strength of these two teams, but also just how these two teams match up. Golden State has the opportunity to win this series still. It's just the way that these teams match up, specifically when it comes to size, length, athleticism, they have to be the better shooting team, and that's when they've had success in stretches in this series. And again, relating it back to kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of this section, relating this to the first round series against Brooklyn for Boston, Kevin Durant obviously struggled in those games, but whenever Brooklyn was hitting shots and hitting threes, they looked like they could at least compete with Boston. Obviously, a lot of those games were pretty close from a scoring standpoint, but anytime things weren't going well or they weren't making shots, they didn't have the lineups to put out there to guard. They didn't have the length and the athleticism. And again, that's a problem for Golden State. Specifically in the first half, Boston was getting to the rim whenever they wanted to. Golden State came out in the second half with one of those patented third quarter runs and then just ran out of steam in the fourth quarter, specifically once Boston stopped turning the ball over. And as we look forward to game 4, I kind of felt like I predicted, obviously, Boston was going to win 3. I feel like Golden State's probably going to win 4. Just again, there's that pride that comes into play there. And then I think Boston wins 5 and 6 and closes it out in 6 at home. That's how I feel right now. That's how I felt before the game. And I do still feel that way. It's interesting though, because Boston still really has struggled to guard Steph. They've been really stubborn in the way that they've chosen to cover him, and their bigs were not getting up on the screen nearly as well as they should have. I do think part of that is a game plan thing for them where they don't want to overreact too much, but of course we've seen what Steph has been able to do through the first 3 games when they've guarded him that way. The other guys punished them more in this game, specifically Clay. It was really good to have, signs of life for him. And for Golden State, moving forward in the series, if they're going to have a chance in this series, Clay's going to have to continue to play the way that he did tonight. And for them defensively, again, they can get some more juice out there. Maybe there's more Gary Payton stuff. Maybe you try either Kuminga or Moody because he's a better off-ball shooter. And again, it's just going to come down to shot making, getting quality offense. Forcing Boston turnovers, I think, is really critical as well. Something we talked about in previous videos where you're trying to crank up that ball pressure. You're trying to make sure guys feel uncomfortable, turn the ball over to get easy buckets in transition. And again, that also eliminates the possibility of having to try and get a defensive rebound, which was an issue for Golden State tonight as well. So things to be concerned about for each team going into game 4 for Boston. Still, again, struggling to guard Steph, figuring out how exactly you want to attack that. They felt a little bit not cohesive, I guess is a good way to put it, in terms of their coverage and everybody being on the same page. That's something to continue to deal with. And again, the constant threat of like Clay just having one of those games obviously being an issue. And then for Golden State, you have to find a way to guard these guys and get a defensive rebound. You have to steal one of these games in Boston because your main advantage is you have 5 and 7 at home. If you can win one of these games in Boston, obviously at this point it's got to be game 4, then you can just win 2 games at home and you're NBA champions. And I think that's their path to this. Have a great Clay game in game 4, continue to get Steph going, maybe change some things up with your rotations and your lineups, find a little bit more length and athleticism, and they certainly still have a chance. I don't want to make it seem like the series is over and Golden State has no chance, but I do think that, again, if you came into this series like me thinking Boston was better, this game tonight is the best evidence towards saying, hey, that was absolutely the right thing to think coming into the game. But we will see what happens now going into game 4 on Friday night, and hopefully it's another good one.